I'd like to call the meeting to an order. This meeting is being televised live on cable channel 9, being taped by Peabody Access TV, and also being recorded by our city council stenographer. We'd like to all rise for a moment of silence. At this tonight, I would like to ask all of you to keep Senator Fred Berry and his family in our thoughts tonight. Thank you. Again, tonight we're going to have a young gentleman, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's James Langley. James is an 8th grader at the Higgins National Honor Society. He's earned his first class Boy Scout badge and the Citizenship Community badge. He is the son of Bob Langley, a longtime resident and city worker here that we all respect. So if we can ask for James to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What a good-looking young man, and I think this might have been the first time we had someone in uniform here to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think it's something that we needed. So again, thank you. Councilor Gould, would like to make a motion to approve the record? You always do.
Approval of the record, Mr. President.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? There's a vote. We'll move to hearing 4A. 4A, the petitioner.
Mr. President, move to receive a late communication.
I thought they were coming up.
Mr. President, move to receive.
Councilor Turco, please.
Move to receive a late communication with the revised poll locations on your desk.
You heard the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we want the petitioner to come up and speak. Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Good evening, council members. My name is Chris Swiniarski. I'm an attorney for Verizon Wireless. So we initially had 14 petitions for grant of location, 7 of which were revised and cannot be heard tonight, but are going to be heard at, I believe, the council's next regularly scheduled meeting. The intent, I think, both on our part and on the council's part, was to consider all of those as a package at once, and therefore we would request that you continue this until the next regularly scheduled meeting so that we can consider all of them at the same time.
Councilor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. President. Based on the commentary from the petitioner, I would move to further continue the recess of the public hearing on the petitions submitted by Selco Partnership DBA, doing business as Verizon Wireless, until September 13th. So moved.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I asked this question because I don't know the answer, and I thought there was discussion at some point offline with some people that a new hearing would be required because there are new locations. So could you give us an update on that question that was floating around? Because that's my question.
Councilor McGinn, would you like to address that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Manning Martin. I was going to make a second motion with respect to the other item that was in our package for receipt that updates those certain poll locations that would effectively make those new hearings. So we've got basically two groups of grant of location requests, the ones that stand as originally proposed by the petitioner, and then a second group of, I believe it's 7, that were revised based on feedback from the council, and those would be unique new hearings.
So if I may, why wouldn't we just do them all at once with a new hearing? We've already discussed it and beat it to death. And you have the new four locations, or 5, that were changed. I mean, why wouldn't we just do one hearing? And I suggest that simply because you have one new hearing, then the full council can vote. Because if you go forward and you chop it up, you're going to have 6 councilors that are able to vote on, 7 polls. And then you'll have to have another separate meeting where all councilors can vote on the new 4 polls. Makes completely no sense to me. It's not efficient, doesn't make any sense. So that's where I'm at.
My understanding is that as a new petition, all the councilors will be able to vote on all the new petition.
That would be 7 polls, but then there's 7 other polls. This just doesn't make any sense.
Councilor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. President. Although we're dealing with these as a group, they are in fact separate, each unique unto themselves. Each one of these requires a vote. Just as if PMLP came before us for a poll location, we would have to vote on each poll. So these are 14 votes, and we are ultimately breaking it into kind of 2 categories in the interest of efficiency. So that was the intent from the get-go, was to try to package these together to make the legislative process a little less cumbersome. But when it comes down to it, it's going to require a unique vote on each location. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, if I may.
Councilor Manning Martin?
You mentioned we. That's what we tried to do. Who's we, and who was involved in this rationale and discussion? And because I'm not in that we, and I don't know wasn't involved in any of the information that you seem to have about how we're moving forward with an issue that's so important that affects the entire city.
So, Councilor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clarify, the reference to we was the city council. I mean, they were put together on the agenda by the city clerk, I believe properly, and we, the city council, addressed them as a group of petitions. However, they are each unique requests, and they are to be, my understanding is they are to be voted on individually. So as there is no confusion, the we reference is to the city clerk and the city council as to the proceedings thus far. Thank you, Mr. President.
If I may, since this is such a, we're going to call it a delicate situation, and unique certainly to me, I do see our city solicitor here, and I'd like for him to come and give his opinion on how this matter should be handled. by our council. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the council, you initially received 14 grant of location petitions. On the second hearing pertaining to those 14, it appeared that there were two groups of 7. The first group was the uncontested group. The number of poles with their specifications and designs that were not objected to, for which there were no requests for changes. The second group of 7, was the source of a great amount of discussion, horse trading, debate on the floor of the council. Verizon's response to the second group of 7, those which embodied hopeful changes by the council, were addressed with changes, the vast majority of which the council requested in the new petitions. I think what is envisioned is that all of these are going to be put on, hopefully, for one date. The council, as a matter of legislative efficiency and economy, could take up the 7 that are uncontested, at least based on the record, for which we have 6 eligible members to vote. Then, again, as a matter of efficiency and subject to the rulings of the president, the 7 contested matters, which are the new petitions that we have, can be undertaken. All 11 of you can vote on those that have just been filed. And it's Verizon's intent that if they acquire the 7 uncontested and the 7 amended, they will withdraw the second group of 7 from the original group that, again, gave source, to some of the horse trading. But that's what would be envisioned, and that's the request for the continuance, to take the existing 14 and match them up for one day, one hearing on all 21 of them. Is that the response you're looking for, Mr. President?
It is. Thank you. Is there? I'm sure there's many questions, so I'll get to every one of you. And so I'm going to start with Councilor Turkle.
I just want to verify, Council Manning, you're all set? No more. Mr. President, through you to Councilor Smozinski. Mike, could we very simply just ask, out of the niceness of his heart, if Councilor Swiniarski would withdraw the original application and then resubmit all 14 together? We could still meet the same time frames. We'll still hear them at the same time, correct? It doesn't delay anything. And then we'll hear all 14 and vote on them all in one day. Doesn't that make sense?
If he were to elect to refile the original 14, it would put you back another meeting. Because he'd have to file them, you'd have to receive them, and then schedule it for a hearing.
Thank you.
And I just remind you, we're back in court next Thursday before the judge.
Councilor Gravel.
Mr. Spazinski, I just have a question. Unfortunately, I'm going to be one of the ones that can't vote on the first group. But how does that work with 6 councilors? Do they have to get all 6 in the vote, or does it become a majority of 6 then?
No, it's bat 1,000. All 6 have to approve.
Better not account.
I've made the point to my counterparts that you need 6 votes, and 7 of these are to be decided by only 6 people.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are they amenable to that? To pushing it back to the the only reason I say that is, it's a one vote issue at that point. And has the request been made is my question. Because I think we would be I think the constituents, the city, the entire issue would be well served to have, I mean, this is a very unique circumstance based on what I could see, that there's been multiple hearings. And as much as I'd like to say that it can be blamed on the council for not being here, there's been changes made to the petitions, and we've broken them out. There's been a number of different things. I mean, I guess I'm just getting to is, it makes a lot more sense to me just to try to get as many of us to be able to vote on this as possible. My question basically is that something you can say to us that that offer has been made, I guess. Thank you.
You are preaching to the choir. The point has been made. If you want to transfer this discussion to my counterpart and again, enter into that dialogue with him, I've had my at-bat.
Mr. President,
Councilor Melville?
through you to Attorney Swiniarski, is that something you'd be amenable to, Swiniarski, excuse me? Was that something you'd be amenable to us being able to group all of these together, to have one vote to deal with all of these, including the updated polls in that petition?
Well, this is the first I've heard of it related to in that way, although maybe I was just misunderstanding the communications I received. That being said, the initial 7 applications, which can only be voted upon by 6 members and therefore require a unanimous vote, were pretty thoroughly discussed by the council in 2 meetings already, and no objections to those 7 locations were raised by the council. So we would prefer that we move forward with those as is, with the understanding that if there were objections, we would have heard about them by now. It's my understanding that the second group simply needs to be moved to the next meeting because of council procedure. Those had to be filed as new petitions because the locations changed, the abutters who are entitled to notice changed, and as I understand it, council procedure requires that the petition must first be accepted formally at one meeting and then heard at the next. So that's really the only reason for the delay. From my client's perspective, these are presented as a package. Having some but not all is not what we are seeking. We are seeking the entire group of 14, and the fact that they are separated out into 14 separate petitions is just a matter of procedure of grant of location petitions.
No, well, hold on, Mr. President, just one. So if we were to request that I guess where I'm trying to get to is I'd like to have the whole council be able to vote on this, and through you, Mr. President, to the clerk, if say one councilor can't make it and we have 5, is that still a quorum to be able to vote on this?
No, then it becomes a whole different set.
That's kind of where I'm going with this thing. So, I mean, I'm just, you representing your client, and you have your best interest of your client in mind. I think that the best interest of your client, and this is just my opinion, and for the city of Peabody, is to have as many councilors vote on this as possible. And that would require us accepting it and bunching this all into one hearing that might not be on September 13th, but the following hearing. I mean, that's just my viewpoint on this. If one counselor is hit by a car, God forbid, or sick, or who knows what happens of the 6, that puts this particular petition in jeopardy. And I think we want to have you have your due process. I want you to have your due process, and that puts into that could impact that due process. So that's my thoughts on it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I believe Councilor Gould, you had your hand up. Councilor Sasslaw, then, I'm sorry. Councilor Turco, you have to, no? Councilor Turco.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. President, I just wanted to clarify through you to Attorney Swiniarski. I did have issue with the 7 polls. If you remember, Councilor McGinn had listed several things that he would like to see changed, one of which was the design and character of those polls in reference to rather than more wooden telephone poles placed all throughout the city. I would have preferred them to be light poles. You chose that you didn't want to do that for whatever reason. So I did have objection to some of those poles, just in the interest of openness.
Okay, thank you.
Any other councilors? No other councilors? Okay. Councilor McGinn, do you have a...
No, there's a motion on the floor, right?
Clerk, can you read the motion, please?
The motion is to continue the public hearing to September 13th.
You heard the motion? Roll call, please.
Okay. Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould, Turco, Melville,
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion to continue carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor McGinn.
I have a related motion. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8O and consider the revised petitions submitted by Selco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless of SC01, SC20, SC21, SC22, SC24, SC30, and SC51 as new petitions and set up public hearings. So moved.
Okay. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Sasla.
Yes.
Matsoulis. Manning Martin. Rozignol.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Thank you. Move to 4B, special permit petitioner here. Can we have a motion to accept late communication for continuance? Councilor Matsoulis?
Receive a late communication, Mr. Chairman, and continue this public hearing till September 13th. So moved.
Councilors, you heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. 4C.
We have a request to continue. It's item 8P.
Councilor Sassas, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, suspension of rules, motion receive item 8P, which is communication from the petitioner asking for an extension until our September 27th, 2018 meeting. So move.
Councilors, you heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. I'm sorry, Councilor Turco.
Mr. President, I guess the motion can carry. I just wanted the council to be aware that in their email from the Conservation Commission, if we could attach this to the special permit, this exact property, and the reason for the delay is there was a violation issued to the property owner, the property located at 25 Farm Ave. The alleged violation is the adding fill and crushed aggregate pad in the location of the proposed stormwater basin as approved by the commission previously. So I would like to see how this plays out, and I would like that information to be attached to the special permit if it comes back to us at a later date.
You heard the motion to have the letter attached to the motion and to the petitioner. All in favor? Any question from the clerk? All set, clerk? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Report of committees, taxi, limousines. Councilor Matsoulis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Taxi Cab and Limousine Committee met earlier this evening, and present at the committee were Councilor Sasslaw, Councilor Manning, Part of the committee was not there. Councilor Gould sat in her place. And out of that committee, Mr. Chairman, Deputy Chief Cohen was there explaining the issue on the problem they having with the taxi cabs, and out of that meeting came the motion, move that Assistant City Solicitor Adam Buckley meet with Deputy Chief Cohen and draft an ordinance regarding the licensing of non-city taxi cabs. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
You heard the report. All in favor? Any opposed? There's a vote.
That's it.
Industrial Communication, Councilor Gould, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. In attendance tonight was Councilor Melville, Councilor McGinn, Councilor Rossignol, Councilor Turco, and Councilor Gravel pinched hit for a couple of items. I want to acknowledge him. There were a number of items, very in-depth discussion took place in regards to a number of items on our agenda. We did not discuss the sale of Crown and Shield apartments that was pulled prior to the meeting. Next was an update regarding the repairs to the Wigan Auditorium. And as you can see, as we could see, the scaffolding and areas has been started. Councilor Gravel made a great point about what does the $140,000 or $130-something thousand get us beyond just repairs, hoping there was more attention paid to the beautiful artwork inside. Mr. Bellavance said he'd get back to us at our next meeting with an update on that. The update review of the zoning maps and corresponding use tables was continued. Next was a proposed zoning amendment for filming and production companies. Mr. Bellavance updated us as to where that stood. There was some language that has to be worked on. Next was the proposed zoning amendment for defining artist studios and galleries in the district which they're allowed. Also, Mr. Bellavance was updating us, will update us with changes in language. Next was almost an hour discussion about the residential overlay proposal. Every councilor participated. There was some great discussion. As it turned out, we had a motion by Councilor Turco for approval of the overlay as presented to us, and that failed 4-1. And then we had a discussion about the kiosks for bike rentals at the South Peabody Greenway, Crystal Lake, and downtown. And it looks like they're narrowing down a vendor called Zagster, which will be providing us with some bicycle kiosks. But it was a great subcommittee meeting. I'm proud of my fellow councilors for their in-depth discussion on all the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McGinn, do you have a...
Yeah, through you to the chairman of Industrial and Community Development. Do we need a vote of the full council on the overlay district motion that came out of subcommittee? I believe we may.
I thought since it failed, according to the clerk, since it failed, there's no further vote. Tim, am I correct?
Well, you have a negative recommendation, so, I mean, it's up to the council if you want to vote on it on full. I mean, I didn't think that you would report it out if it was a negative recommendation.
If the clerk deems it unnecessary, then I see Councilor Gravel seems a little uncertain on that, but I'll certainly defer to the clerk's judgment on that.
I'll defer to the council if they...
As the chairman, I'm going to defer to the chairman of the subcommittee.
As the chair of the subcommittee, let's take a roll call vote, please.
The recommendation from the chairman, can we have a roll call?
So this is on the motion on the...
The motion by Councilor Turco that
Okay.
failed in
Yep.
subcommittee.
Okay,
Same motion.
same
Thank you.
motion. Okay, Councilors O'Neill,
No.
McGinn,
No.
Gould,
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Mitsoulas,
Yes.
Manning Martin.
No.
Rozignol,
No.
Turco,
No.
Melville,
No.
Gravel,
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion fails, 6-5.
Thank you, Counsel.
Again, Port of Committee, Councilor Gravel.
Well, I am sorry. So this evening, we had a Finance Committee meeting. There were, all of the councils were in attendance, both the committee as well as the rest of the councils. I appreciate that. And there was two items on the agenda. The item A, which was compensation increase for election workers, was withdrawn for further consideration by the city clerk's request. Item B was the transfer of funds for debt service to accommodate debt services, and a list of the accounts totaling $92,000 was submitted. That list of accounts, I won't reread those, but it's $92,000 from a list that was submitted under the proposal, and it was to move $92,000 from payroll and expense accounts to debt service interest, account 100-07000-59200, in the same amount of $92,000. So moved.
Heard the motion. Do we need a vote? Roll call vote on that, please.
Councilors O'Neill,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Yes.
Sasla,
Yes.
Mitsoulas, Manning Martin.
Yes.
Rozignol, Turco,
Yes.
Melville,
Yes.
Gravel,
Yes.
Charist.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Move to motion orders and resolutions. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to accept communications 8A through E, communications from Robert Labossiere, the Department of Public Services. Under suspension of the rules, accept communication 8L.
Councilor O'Neill, we need a vote. We're going to need to have a vote on 8A first. 8E, excuse me. Are you doing it one at a time? We'll do it as a package. Is everyone comfortable with that, or would you like to do it individually? Any comments on the council? Hearing none, we'll do a package deal. Can I have a roll call? No? You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Accept communication, under suspension of the rules, accept communication item 8L regarding Adam Hoffman becoming an Eagle Scout. Under suspension of the rules, accept communication 8R regarding aggregate industries and their response regarding prohibition of heavy commercial vehicles. And lastly, under suspension of the rules, 9E, set up, there's a petition for a light pole on Pinewood Road. We need to set up a hearing.
You heard the motion. Unless there's a objection on one of those, we can take it as a group. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor O'Neill.
No further motions. Thank you.
Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8T and set up a public hearing. So moved.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to request that Peabody Municipal Light Plant install a 250-watt sodium lamp fixture to be installed to pole 5 on Sewell Street to illuminate the city-owned parking lot at the corner of Sewell and Pierpont Street as recommended by the Peabody Police Department. So moved.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. No further motions.
Gould.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to reopen a motion or just make a second motion to ask PMLP to install a street light on a pole that exists at 5 Dartmouth Street. It's the end of a street. Co-motion with Councilor Sharis, I believe. So moved.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Did you get the address? Councilor Gould, could you just give that address once again?
5 Dartmouth, please. I'm sorry. Make a motion, co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas to have a sidewalk fixed at 10 Sparrow Lane Extension. There's a severely damaged sidewalk causing a trip hazard. So moved. 10 Sparrow Lane Extension, Tim. Thank you.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Through Parks and Recreation, I'd like to see a co-motion with Councilor McGinn, please, to have new lighting installed at O'Connor A ball field. Apparently the lighting is horrendous. I think maybe Councilor Rosendahl might be able to shed some light on that. Is it as bad as it's made out to be, Councilor?
Rosendahl.
Yes, thank you. On that motion, the softball field that is, it's actually, O'Connor A, the lights just need to be adjusted, and a lot of them are out, which makes it hazardous to play.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You heard the motion.
Sorry, you heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas to have a sidewalk fixed at 30 North End Street. So moved.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas to have a part of the pavement has pushed up because of a tree root right in front of 6 Lennox Road. It's creating a hazard. So moved.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas to have... Hi, Jimmy. I'm all motion now. All right. Co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas. Jim and I have a teamwork going here, all right? So eat your heart out, right, Jim? To have a tree trimmed that is interfering with the visual ability to see the crosswalk light at the corner of Roycroft and Margin Street. Need the tree trimmed. It's an accident waiting to happen. So moved.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And I have no further motions, Mr. President.
Councilor Sasala.
Thank you, Council President. Suspension of rules, motion to receive item 8Q and set up a special permit hearing.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to make a motion to the Peabody Park and Recreation to trim a tree at the corner of Gooddale Street and Gooddale Terrace. It's blocking a dangerous curve sign. So move.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to also make a motion that Peabody Park and Forestry Division remove 2 tree stumps. They cut 2 trees, removed 2 tree stumps, one in front of 22 Benevento Circle and one of 30 Benevento Circle.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to make a motion that Department of Public Services install a slow dangerous curve sign at 19 Gooddale Street.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
No further motions, thank you.
Councilor Mitsoulas, can you make a co-motion with Councilor Gould, please?
All my motions are with Councilor Gould. Okay. Under suspension of the rules, I'd like to go to item 8K. I'd like to receive, it's a letter from a resident on Gardner Street. I'd like to receive it, refer it to Public Safety, and set up a meeting with the committee and the neighborhood on Gardner Street. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
You heard the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And also, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to have our police department patrol Gardner Street. It's a special request. And also place that speed limit sign that we have in the neighborhood on Gardner Street for a couple of days. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Counselor, on your motion, is there a particular time you want the police to patrol, or is it throughout the day? Anything focused?
I was just asked to patrol. I guess any time would be fine.
Counselor, before the motion, Counselor Gould, do you have a...
If I can, Jim and I have been working with the residents on Gardner. It's truck traffic in particular, so that's all day, all night, truck traffic in particular. So moved.
Okay. You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Matsoulis?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, I'd like to move to 8M, motion to receive.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Under suspension of the rules, I'd like to receive 8S. It's a communication for a site plan review on Tremont Street, which if anybody's interested in reading it and going, they're welcome to come. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Also, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, under suspension of the rules, I'd like to receive 9B, and that's a request for a block party on Margin Street. Motion to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And finally, I'd like to go to item 9C, and motion to receive and approve, subject to all papers being in order, Mr. Chairman. So moved.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, sir.
Councilor McGinn, do you have a point?
Yeah, Mr. President, through you to Councilor Matsoulis with respect to 9C, I just wanted to ask if the clerk could attach a copy of that now approved document to the continued public hearing for that same property, which was on the agenda earlier tonight as 4B. Only because it makes reference to some violations that existed on the property for a period of time. So I just want to make sure that the councilors have full complement of information. So if that's...
Yeah, Councilor, I'm aware of that, and that's why I said motion approved, subject to all papers being in order. And
Yeah, no, I have no problem with the motion whatsoever as the way you presented. I just, because it will come off the agenda tonight, it won't be there when this hearing comes up, so I wanted to make sure that councilors had it available.
add it to the hearing. Oh, fine.
In their package, available for reference.
Fine.
Thank you, Councilor.
Yep.
Councilman Matsoulis, you okay with that? Adding
Yeah,
that
fine.
too? You heard that motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Well, Councilor Ann Manning Martin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I've been doing a little research. I've noticed over the last 2 years, for whatever reason, council meetings have prolonged into very late and sometimes early morning hours, and it hasn't only happened just this year, but it's kind of happened within the last 2 years for whatever reason. And when meetings run past 11 o'clock, it really damages the public's ability to testify on matters of importance. And there really isn't an appearance of open and transparent government when we're operating at 12:30 in the morning, when the public's sleeping, and half the council is too. And council fatigue sets in after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and midnight comes around. So with that, I did a little research on some other cities' council rules regarding the end time of meetings, and I some great already written rules out there that seem to work for other communities. So with that, what I'd like to do is make a motion to amend Section 14 of our council rules and institute or add an amendment 14B. The city council will not hear any new agenda items past 11 p.m. If agenda items remain after 11 p.m., the city council may extend the meeting with a majority vote. A special meeting may be scheduled, or items may be deferred until the next meeting. The intent and purpose of this rule is to encourage a reasonable hour in which the council business is conducted and to protect against fatigue in discussing and deciding important city issues. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Just a point of order. We will not be able to vote on this tonight. It would need to go on the
That's correct.
next agenda.
That's correct. It goes to the next agenda for a full vote of the council. Thank you.
Councilor Gould on the motion?
Yes, please. Councilor Manning Martin, can you please clarify what you mean by agenda? Is that special permit hearings only?
I'm sorry?
Can you please clarify what you mean by agenda items? You said if agenda items are not heard, is that special permit
It
hearings
would be, the
only?
meeting would end at 11. So if there's an item that we're discussing as we approach 11, the council would have to vote to continue to go beyond 11 to start any new business.
So regardless of whether we're in motions, orders, and resolutions, or communications from the Honor the Mayor, we end at 11?
That's correct.
Thank you.
If I may, you could make, if we had the same procedure in the school committee, I think many of us remember, there could be a motion to suspend that rule and continue the meeting. Am I correct, Clerk? And Ms. Manning Martin?
Correct. And I believe I captured that in the language that I'm putting forward.
And Councilor Gould, are you finished? Okay. Councilor Manning, Councilor McGinn, please.
So, yeah, my question is, relates to, there was a motion, but I think you're saying that it needs to go to the next meeting to be on the agenda, but wouldn't it be proper to refer this to committee for discussion? I mean, that's what we're undertaking here tonight in a kind of...
No, our council rules dictate where it goes, and it goes to the next meeting, to the full council for a vote.
And thank you, Councilor Manning Martin, for the clarification. So where specifically is that in the council rules, just so I'm clear on Section 25? Thank you.
25B, as a Bob.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess through you, just to ask Councilor Manning Martin, is there any hesitation to having it go to the Legal Affairs Committee to discuss it before the council vote?
Yes, there is, because the council rules say that it goes to the next meeting. These are rules, and that's we're amending a rule. So we're following the rules in order to better conduct business. So I want to follow the rules.
Point of order. I just asked a question, and obviously the Legal Affairs Committee, as you know, deals with ordinances, claims, rules, regulations, and elections. I just asked the question. I understand.
And I'm
Yeah.
answering. In our council, if we had let me give you another example. If we had as you know, a question of finances, of expenditures, in our council rules, it dictates that that matter must go to finance. So it's, that's just not applied in this case for that, that's all.
Understood. My point was, even if it went to a committee, it would go to a council vote, but I just asked the question. Thanks.
Councilor Rosano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a rule that we have on the school committee. The only question I have actually is, so if we do not get through the entire agenda, does the remaining agenda items then take precedence at the next city council meeting?
But that would be up to the city council president to decide the order of the next agenda. I would assume that, that would be what he would do, but I think that would be up to him.
To answer the question, I believe it would be up to the duty of the council president at that time. Again, it does change over year from year. My view, I would state today that would be something I would look at with the clerk to make sure that the petitioners who were scheduled for that night can appear the next meeting, and it doesn't put anything in jeopardy of timeframes and timelines. You know that if we, towards the end of the year, if we don't get things done, they has to go through the whole process again. So I would be very concerned, and again, we have the right to suspend the rule and continue. I would take full advantage as a president of the council at that point in time to do that, so we would get the work done of the people that we need to represent and vote on issues that's in front of us. I do understand the time frame, and that, hey, I get up at 4 o'clock every morning. I get it. But I just also want to be clear that I would recommend for the next president to work with the city clerk's office to make sure there's not a time restraint, and those items that was on that first agenda would be brought up first. Did that answer your question, Councilor Osno?
It does, but I don't know if I feel comfortable leaving it up to the decision of whoever the council president may be, and not have necessarily a draft order of what the policy and the procedure would be moving forward. Because what I wouldn't want is something to get lost in the shuffle if we're going to end up pushing things off, which I know is not the intent of the motion. I want to make sure that there is a succinct timeline of making sure that business gets handled and it doesn't necessarily get pushed off too far or it gets lost in the shuffle.
I understand, Councilor Osno. I've been advised that we can have some dialogue right now, but on the motion, it really should be limited and discussed at the proper, as Councilor O'Neill and Councilor Manny Martin did talk about earlier. I am one to follow procedures and make sure we don't violate any procedures ruling. So if the next councilors, if you can keep that in mind, that we don't have much dialogue on the concept of the motion and just mere points. So be it. And again, it's just been advised. Thank you. Councilor, any councilors? Councilor McGinn. I'm sorry.
Just pointing out, I think we have a motion on the floor. I wasn't sure if you were...
I am, but there's a couple people who wanted to make a statement. Councilor Gravel.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in 8 years on the school committee, we had the 11 o'clock rule. I don't recall once where it didn't pass with the majority to continue on. But what it did do is it gave the people, everybody in the group, the ability to decide, if they wanted to continue. And it kind of was more like a polling. But I always found that, for the most part, if there was important business to conduct, the motion to suspend and accept beyond 11 was always approved, and it went forward. But I do think it's good for order. And I would also point out that part of the problem that we've been having as a direct result of this is the fact that our subcommittee meetings are running longer than their scheduled time. And I guess if you want to look at rules, and I would refer this one to legal, not as a rule change, but maybe as a look at for a recommendation, is the council rule states that subcommittee meetings are supposed to be held on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but Thursdays only in the week of the non-regular meeting, to avoid the type of conflict that we've been running into. And that might be a rule that you might want to, I would, when it's my turn, I'll make that as a motion.
Thank you. I was going to ask you to refer that. Any other points on the motion? Any other points on the motion? Roll call, Councilor Gould. Yeah, but is it to put it on the next agenda?
It's automatic under our council rules that goes on the next agenda. There is no vote.
Understood? That's why he gets paid the big bucks. Thank you. Councilor Manny Martin.
The motions, thank you.
Councilor Rosenall.
No motions at this time.
Councilor...
Thank you.
Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to alleviate some confusion for me, did we group receive items A through E altogether? Those are all received. Okay, so move to receive item 8F, 795 Jubilee Site Plan.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Is a vote.
Move to receive item 8H under
You-
suspension of the rules.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Through you to the clerk, Mr. President. Tim, do you know if Parks has reached out regarding that 8H? That's a tree on Linfield Street that needed to be cut down. It's actually on Lynn property. Do you know if the clerk's office is reaching out to the city of Lynn? I don't want this to get lost. Or if forestry has reached out to Lynn.
I don't have any status
Okay.
on the council.
I'll check on it tomorrow. Thank you. Move to receive and approve, and, well, excuse me, move to receive and adopt as advertised, item 10B, an ordinance amending section 19-95.1, residents only allowed on certain streets, daytime hours of the city code, the city of Peabody, Lynch Street.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Mr. President, I'm going to ask that we refer a current city ordinance regarding parking at Browns Pond to the Peabody Police Department Traffic Division, Captain Richards and Sergeant Hawkins. The current ordinance reads that Section 1995 parking is prohibited during the summer season on enumerated streets near Browns Pond. Over the summer, that's created an issue with some neighbors, and I'd like to rewrite that ordinance, or have traffic look at rewriting that ordinance to at least allowing parking on one side of the street so that this issue doesn't come up again.
Is this the sticker parking, or is this,
Okay,
or is this just in general?
Section 1995 just reads, parking prohibited during summer seasons on enumerated streets near Browns Pond. There shall be no parking at any time on the following streets during the period of April 30th through September 30th. And then it lists Fairview, Glendale, Granite, Hillside, Lake Court, Lynn Street, and Troy Street. That was in 1969. I don't think it relates to the sticker program. I think that was already taken out of city ordinance by Councilor Osborne. And this was what replaced it. So now I'd like to take this out and replace that with allowing parking on one side. I did write it myself, but in an effort to not create confusion for traffic enforcement, I'd like them to take a look at it and tell me which side of the street they'd like the parking to be allowed on. And I did previously discuss this with both Captain Richards and Sergeant Hawkins.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Is a vote.
Move to have Public Services install the signage in reference to item 10B for do not enter 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Lynch Street, which is also known as Rear Linfield Street. Tim, if you could put that for Public Services as also Rear Linfield Street, so they know the portion of Linfield that we're speaking about. And lastly, Mr. President, through you to vote on that motion.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Is a vote. Thank you.
Lastly, Mr. President, through you to Councilor McGinn. Councilor McGinn, I had previously sent a request from Stony Brook Condominiums to Legal Affairs to have some of their streets recognized by the city of Peabody for enforcement reasons, and they've been contacting me, and I'm wondering if we could expedite it and maybe get that out of Legal Affairs quicker.
We'll set that up. Thank you, Councilor.
That is all.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Is a vote.
That's all. Thank you.
Councilor Melville.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just wanted to make one comment. A couple weeks back, we had the storm Sunday morning, got about 8.5 inches of rain. And I was out and I saw a number of our emergency services, whether it be the fire department, pumping basements, doing what they had to do, or the police department blocking streets to make sure that they weren't causing any further issues with people driving through already flooded streets, or the EMS. I saw them out there a couple times transporting people. I just wanted to commend, and along with Public Works and Public Services and all the employees out there, as many of them had their own houses were impacted while they were out doing their job. So I just wanted to commend them because it was a pretty significant event. It was not expected, so it was not something that they were on standby for in many ways. So I just wanted to make that known, and I don't have any motions tonight. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Melville. Councilor Gravel.
Yes, under suspension of the rules, I'll receive item 7A.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
On the suspension of the rules, I'd like to receive items 7B, C, and D and refer them to the next Finance Committee, which can be set up as soon as possible.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to make a motion that the Public Works Department contact the owners of the land located on the corner of Sandra and John Road and across the street. For a safety issue, both the sidewalks and the land itself are all overgrown, and you can no longer see the sidewalks, nor can you see any children who are riding bicycles in that area because the grass is so high. So moved.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to request the clerk set up a meeting of the Charter Subcommittee for, I would like the second meeting in September to give the mayor time enough to get the contracts so that we know what's going on.
Motion. All in favor in the vote.
I'd also like to make a motion to, I don't know if anybody else saw this, but there were a lot of you at the pizza festival, which, by the way, I think the Main Streets group deserves a lot of praise and credit. We're bringing thousands of people down into the downtown area, and every pizza business around seemed to be there. So it was a great time, and I think a great opportunity for people to see, Peabody live and see it working. So my commendation to that group. But while I was there, I did notice that in the parking lot behind 49 Lowell Street, which is principally used by the fire department at this time, but also is used by the public because it is a public parking lot, there are entire sections of guardrail that are missing. On the old wood guardrail has fallen down, and so it presents itself, particularly in the evening, to a safety hazard where people could walk right off into the North River. And it applies also to the footbridge itself that's built there. It's in such a state of disrepair. So my motion would be to have Public Works repair the guardrails, the footbridge, and to clean up the parking lot so you can actually see the parking area because it's all overgrown as well. So moved.
Heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to request that the Industrial Community Development Committee request that the Director of Community Development come back to us with a different plan for the overlay district that maybe narrows and is more specific in conjunction with a map as to the intention of where that overlay district would be applied. So moved.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And I would just like to place a reminder on everybody's calendar that on September 13th at 7:30 in the morning, the Peabody Main Streets Economic Development Committee, along with the mayor, have invited developers, realtors, bankers, and building owners in the entire downtown area to participate in a presentation and, a joining of hands to try to see what they want to develop down here, as well as a virtual tour of the downtown area. There'll be a breakfast served and a presentation with the hope that we can get some interest from outside developers in terms of what can happen to our properties and kind of invigorate the economic development in downtown. So just a reminder, you should have all received an invitation if you haven't, but please do RSVP because the entire cost of that is being offset by private businesses, and they want to be able to order the right amount of food, etc. So, thank you.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Councilor Gould.
Thank you. Councilor Gravel, thanks for bringing all that up, and acknowledge that Councilor Gravel and his team at Grayvock are the main sponsors of organizing the technical side of that. So thank you, Dave, for your support on that. Appreciate it.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gravel. That's it. I have just a couple. Under the suspension of rules, I'd like to accept 8U and set up for a hearing. Heard the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Also, I would like to request the Peabody Police to look at a request of having no parking from 102 to 108 on the, I guess you're going to call it the west side of Summit Street. That's where the Dead Man Curve is and the houses are being built. I'm having a lot of concern with people thinking when those houses will be built and people will be parking along that guardrail, they won't be able to see the driveways and people open it up. So as we all know, it's an extremely dangerous road right there, and we like to keep people safe. So I'm looking to have on that side from 102 to 108, no parking. Hear the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. I also like to ask, this may fall into with Captain Richards and the state. On the Lowell Street next to the 128 overpass, if you're coming off 128 southbound, there is a lane for people to take a left with a line across the street to go southbound on 128. And further on, there is another lane for you to be able to take a left to go north. What cars are doing, if you're coming off the highway and you're looking to come out, there's a white line painted in the lane. But in some cases, cars are just continuing to use that lane and continuing to go under the bridge and get onto 128. What's happening, cars are pulling off that exit ramp, expecting those cars to stop at the white lane, and they're not. There is no stop sign or stop lettering on the road. It is, in my opinion, the state road, but if we're allowed to paint a stop line on both of those, I think it would save a lot of some accidents and maybe some very dangerous situation. So I'm asking to refer this to Captain Richards so he can reach out to the appropriate people to have this done. I know it's a long-winded, but I think I really kind of nailed it, right? So all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. I also would like to have constituents asking for no heavy trucks on Perkins Road, going from Lowell Street down to the police station. We did have this ordinance, and it was a temporary ordinance when the school was being built. Now that we are developing our parks, our dog park, our basketball courts, our fields, everything else, we're inviting lots of family and children, and I think it would be only safe for we to limit heavy vehicles on that road. And I ask this to be directed to the police department to assure that this is a policy, that ruling that we can make. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Also asking for the light pole that's in front of, on King Street, in the middle of the road that's directed a light onto the property of the old J.B. Thomas Hospital. I think that has been there, and from what people have told me, years now when we own that hospital. I'm not sure if the city is supplying electricity and lights to the private property, but I will ask for, I'm not sure if that's PMLP because it's not a light pole, but it is a spotlight. So I'm going to ask for the consideration of who that may, we're going to reach it out to the PMLP, but if it is own Department of Works, if we can remove that pole, since we're going to have another pole, potentially another pole in that vicinity, and I just don't think it's right that taxpayers are lighting up a private property. Heard that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. One other thing I would like to point out is Councilor Gravel talked about the pizza party and things of that nature and the concerts. Just to ask people to remember that that concert is being done in a park where there's signs that says no dogs. There's a lot of families and people who come to participate in activities there, especially small children with maybe holding a slice of pizza, that people recognize that it is a park, and please don't bring your dog into the park. It's really an ordinance that we have throughout the city, and certainly on situations like this when gathering of young children, that people will be respectful and not bring their dogs onto the park. Heard the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. And one more motion, if up into, look into for, especially for the next year, if we can find fans for the auditorium that doesn't sound so loud, so we can have air movement going through the auditorium while we're having our meeting. If we can make that motion, I'm not quite sure. Councilors, please help me out who this will be moved to. We'll put it on the mayor's office, that can locate some fans that will do the job without making such a loud noise. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. That's all I have. If Councilor...
Mr. Chairman, if I...
Yes,
Mr.
Councilor
President,
Gould.
I forgot to welcome all, invite all my fellow councilors to play softball next Thursday evening, 6 o'clock at Mars Park against Salem for the 5th annual Salem City Council, Peabody City Council softball game. Mr. Foreman, if you could please help with that.
Councilor, how many times has Peabody won that tournament?
This would be 4 straight. We're hoping Salem gives us a good challenge this year. And I promise you, Councilor McGinn won't take a foul ball off the face. And apparently, Councilor O'Neill is fast as hell, but he can't hit. That's kind of what he told me. But anyway.
Councilor Gravel, would just please state the date and time again?
Sure. It's Thursday night, a week from tonight, the 30th, at Mars Park. All proceeds benefit the Haven from Hunger, so it's going to a nice cause. Love to have you come out, even if you don't want to play. Come out and support it. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Make sure your health insurance is up to snuff. Thank you.
Councilor Gravel, would you like to take items 9A with all the licenses? Do we? All the ones?
Absolutely. Taxi limousine driver's license, John Marley, license 8, Rex Kent, license 9, Dana McPhee, license 10, D'Angelo Pacheco, license 12, Michelle Picciulio, license 13, Jamie Mejia, license 14, John Shaw, license 16, Jackson Janvier, license 17, Hitcham Chibani, license 18, Gary Ferguson, license 20, Kimberly Kaislowski, license 21, Dennis Giannis, license 22, Jason Cacciola, license 24, and Stephen Roberts, license 25. Move to receive, approve, subject to all papers to be in order. So moved.
You heard the motions. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Thank you, Councilor. Is there any other
Did you get 8G?
Do we, Counselor, did anyone take
8G. It's
9D? 9D, ups for grabs?
Move to approve, all papers being in order, so moved.
Heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Did you get 8G earlier?
Why don't you do it again if you have it?
Move to receive item 8G.
You heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to receive item 8M, so moved.
You heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to receive item 8N and approve, and on the motion, that is the warrant for the primary. I believe we all need to sign that tonight before we leave. So moved.
Councilors, understood, we would need to sign signatures before you leave tonight. You heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
I think that's it, Mr. President.
That's it. Thank you. Item 10A.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Motion to withdraw that motion. So moved.
You heard the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. Item 8B. 10B, excuse me.
10B was done by Councilor Turco, I believe.
You got it?
Yeah.
It was done? Thank you.
Yeah, move to adjourn.
You heard the move for adjourn. Thank you, councilors.